Hi, we're here in the Willow Studio in downtown Phoenix, and I'm going to show you some simple tips on getting some great food shots in a natural light studio. Now what we have here obviously is a plate of mac and cheese with the various things involved in making it. So we've kind of beautified the shot with some cheeses, some wood platters. We've got some dishes in the background, and we want to make a great shot. And because we're going to Instagram, we're actually going to shoot all vertical shots so that it really looks great on our Instagram feed. And you may want to do this at home, and so what you need to do is you need to find a very large light source like the one we have here, a very big window. In our case at the Willow Studio, we have a natural light studio here that's always in indirect sun because it's a north-facing window. So we're always going to have beautiful light, doesn't matter what time of day. So this is a really big light source, and as you're looking here at the plate, you can see that the light is coming in kind of from the top down, which means that we're going to have some beautiful glow and sheen across the actual plate of food, and we're going to have shadows at the very front, which is going to create the depth. So when you're making a shot, remember that if you have shadow in the front and the light coming from behind, you're going to get a lot of great depth. Shadow front and then highlight coming from behind. But having a huge light source like this natural window here allows that light to wrap around the product. Instead of having a really deep shadow here, it's a very nice, bright, open shadow because there's such a big light source. The light is coming from everywhere and it's wrapping around our product. You'll notice here that we have a white board. This is basically a foam core, and that is bouncing some of the light that's coming from the window. It's bouncing across off of this whiteboard, and it's bouncing in and filling our shadows. And we can determine how deep those shadows are simply by bringing our whiteboard closer or moving it to the right or moving it to the left. We also can add a little additional light because we've got an extra little foam core here with a white side and a black side. So I want you to look at this shadow, and simply by raising up this whiteboard, you can see that the shadow disappears. So I can make a less contrasty, a little more open and airy shot by simply adding just a little bit of fill in the front. Or conversely, I can actually take the black side of this board and I can basically take light away. So now when I raise this up, that shadow is going to get just a little bit darker so that it becomes a much more dramatic shot with most of the light coming from behind. Now play around with this and decide for yourself which way you want to go. Do you want more shadows so that you have a much more dramatic shot with even more depth in it? Or would you like it to be open and airy, and in which case you're going to use a lot more white fill in the front. Now for this shot, I really want to have that backlit effect. I want to have those light shadows here, but if I wanted to have more of a side lit shot where I had highlights coming on one side and shadows on the other, I've specifically put this table on a wheeled cart so that I can just turn it around. All I need to do is just shift the table around like this and move my camera over to this position, and I'll see highlights on the left and shadows on the right. But for our circumstance, I actually like the backlit version, so I'm going to turn this back like this and photograph from here. Okay, so I've made sure that I'm in focus, but I really want to make sure that I have absolute focus and that I have the right exposure. So I'm going to take a shot really quickly, and we're going to do it with a trigger, a remote trigger, so that we don't make any movement in the camera because we've got kind of a long shutter speed. So let's take this shot. Okay, so now that we have the shot, it's going to come into my computer because I'm tethered to the computer. And the reason that I'm tethered to the computer is so that I can make sure that my exposure is absolutely perfect and my focus is absolutely perfect. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the crop tool to zoom into little parts of the photograph, and the histogram is going to tell me exactly what the exposure is on those specific areas. So I'm going to turn on the crop tool, and I'm going to just simply draw a box around a certain area in the photograph, which is basically a white cup. And you can see that the histogram has now changed to a spike in the white area of the histogram. So that tells me that my exposure is perfect. Also, when you look at it, you see that all of the colors are piled up in the same place, which means that my white balance is also perfect because all the red, green, and blue are all lined up together. So it's a neutral area. Now I'm going to take that little part of the crop and I'm going to scroll down until I hit the dark side of the cheese. And on the dark side of the cheese, I can see that it's obviously warmer because the red goes to the right, but that I have a really good proper exposure of kind of a middle gray area. And then I'm going to take this crop area down to the shadow part next to the cheese bowl itself, and I can see that I've got a bunch of information in the shadows, but nothing is clipping. So I have a perfect exposure of my shot. So once I've done that, I'm going to escape out of my crop tool, and I'm just going to make sure that when I zoom in that I've got really nice focus in the area that I want. And of course, I've got a shallow depth of field so that it's really bright and airy. It's a beautiful Instagram shot. I like what I've done. I'm going to take a couple more shots just to make sure I have different crops and angles. And then I'm going to swap that dish out for something different. So once you get the light right, make a whole bunch of images, replate the dish, focus in on the cheeses and the fruit, and make the best use of the light that you've put together. Now remember, in order to get this shot, the first thing that you were looking for is a window that was facing north or somewhere where there's no direct light. You want a very large light source, and hopefully that light is coming from either the side or from behind your subject. Then make sure that you are steady, make sure that you're focused, and make sure that you get your exposure right. And tethering your camera will help you in that process. Whenever you're trying to take photographs for whatever purpose, especially when you're doing some kind of a still life photo, you want to look for beautiful light that's not going to change rapidly. And that's why a Northlight studio like the one here at Willow is a fantastic place to photograph food and any kind of product shots that you're trying to make. So get out there, look for great light, and we will see you on the next video where we'll teach you more great tips on photography.